Hi everyone, today we are looking at the second session of Module 2 for Class 6, Chapter 12, Combustible Substances and Fire Extinguishers. This session is divided as usual into opening, main creation and the closure. For the opening, start by recalling what happened in the previous session and collecting the at-home activity that they had to complete last week. Once that is done, introduce to them what ignition temperature is. Ignition temperature is the minimum temperature at which a substance can catch fire. Put up the display sheet which explains what an ignition temperature is and also shows the different ignition temperatures of different substances. Compare some of the ignition temperatures like paper, how it is so high, which means you need a lot of heat for it to catch fire, while on the other hand phosphorus ignition temperature is only 30 to 35 degrees Celsius, so just by putting it out in air, it can catch fire. Once you tell them that, explain to them when you pour water on a substance which is on fire, the water cools down the ignition temperature, cools down the temperature of the substance and the temperature becomes less than the ignition temperature. Now if the substance's general temperature is less than the ignition temperature, then it cannot catch fire. That's why we pour water to cool it down. Now, once you have done explaining the ignition temperature and what water does to it, we'll play an activity. Ask the children to, in a piece of paper, write a number between 50 and 150. This number that they have written will be the ignition temperature for that student. And assuming they are different type of substances. Now they all need to stand in a circle and you need to call out a temperature at which they are going to at which the atmosphere is. So depending on what the ignition temperature of theirs is, they might or might not catch fire. For example, if you say the first number which is 40 degrees Celsius, everyone's ignition temperature is above 50 because we asked them to write the number between 50 and 150. So nobody will catch fire. Then you say a number, next number you can say is 60 degrees Celsius. Now whoever's ignition temperature is they have written below 60, they will catch fire. Now if they are catching fire, they need to put their hands up and shake like this. Like that, keep saying 100, 140 degrees Celsius and finally 150 degrees Celsius. When you say 150 degrees Celsius, everyone in the group should be on fire because as mentioned earlier, the ignition temperature that we wrote was between 50 and 150. So now the whole class is standing like this because they are all on fire. Then you need to say, now I will pour some water on you and your temperature will come down. You will cool down. So you act like you are pouring some water and then you say, the temperature of all of you have come down to 140 degrees Celsius. So some of them whose ignition temperature is between 140 and 150, they will stop catching fire and they can put their hands down. Now you gradually say the numbers lesser, so you can say 120 degrees Celsius, 80 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Celsius and finally 20 degrees Celsius. Now when we say 20, there will be nobody who is on fire because the ignition temperature we decided was between 50 and 150. Now with that, they will understand the concept of ignition temperature and that ignition temperature is the minimum temperature at which a substance will catch fire. Once this is done, we move into the main creation. Now the main creation is looking at 3-4 different aspects. First we look at the history of fire extinguishers. It's just a story where we show them the handouts of the different people who worked on fire extinguishers and you tell them the story. Show them the pictures and tell them the story of how the fire extinguishers were made. The first fire extinguisher was invented by Ambrose Godfrey from England in 1723. It was then converted to a handheld one by George William Mandy. This extinguisher had a copper container with compressed air. So they used air as a fire extinguisher. The present fire extinguisher, soda acid fire extinguisher, was invented by Francis Collier in 1886. The final picture is of the soda acid fire extinguisher. Now when you are explaining how it functions, use the handout which shows you soda acid fire extinguisher. Soda acid fire extinguisher has a steel cylinder filled with sodium bicarbonate solution. A small bottle containing dilute sulfuric acid is kept inside the compartment at the top of the cylinder. When needed, the knob of the cylinder is hit against the floor. Sodium bicarbonate solution reacts with the dilute sulfuric acid instantly, produces carbon dioxide and water. They are released through the nozzle. Carbon dioxide stops combustion of oxygen and water cools the burning substance. So, showing the parts of that fire extinguisher, explain how it is working. Then we move into the types of fire extinguishers. Use the display sheets which explain the 4 different types of fire. There is a class A type of fire which is caused by ordinary substances like cloth, paper, wood, plastic, rubber. Class B fire is caused by petrol, kerosene, gasoline, alcohol and paint. Class C fire is caused by fuse box, electrical wires and electrical appliances. Class D fire is caused by combustible materials like magnesium, sodium and titanium. Put the 4 display sheets on the board for the children to see that these are the different types of fire. Once you tell them that there are different types of fire extinguishers too. Because they are all different types of fire, some of them are simple fires, some of them are big fires, you need different types of fire extinguishers. Now the handout will explain the 5 different types of fire extinguishers, and you need to put the display sheets out on the wall for them to see and while you are explaining it. The 5 different types are water fire extinguisher, foam fire extinguisher, carbon dioxide fire extinguisher, dry chemical and halon fire extinguisher. Now each of this has a common name also. Water fire extinguisher is called the A type fire extinguisher because it can put down only class A fires. While on the other hand, foam fire extinguisher is an AB type fire extinguisher, which means it can put out class A fire and class B fire. Carbon dioxide is BC. Dry chemical is ABC, which is the most commonly used fire extinguisher because it can put down the 3 classes of fire, which is A, B and C. And finally, halon is a D type fire extinguisher. Explain to them so that and reiterate the fact that A, B, C's mean this, and for these fire extinguishers, like there are the different symbols written on it so that you know which fire extinguisher to use for which fire. Once you are done with that, we'll play an activity for this round. For this, you need to use the fire extinguisher cards and keep it in 5 different places in the classroom. For it, like you do it for bombing the city. Basically, the children need to go stand in those places. Then you need to tell the children that you are all substances. Now I'll tell you which kind of substance you are and that you are on fire. Now depending on what I say, you need to run to the nearest fire extinguisher which will save your life as soon as possible. Now some of these fires will be a class B fire, class A fire, where they can go to more than one type of fire extinguisher. Now if they all crowd to just one fire extinguisher, you can say, oh no, you are all here, we don't have enough chemical to put out the fire for so many of you, so some of you need to run to the other place. By this, they also reiterate the fact that there are different types of fire extinguisher, also that fire extinguishers have a limited capacity of when it comes to extinguish a fire. It's not like when a big house is on fire, you can use a fire extinguisher. That won't work that place. So some of the examples that you give here will be fire caused by cloth, which is a class A fire. The children, if they don't know, they'll be also looking at the board for the different types of fire that you've written there. Now class A fire can be extinguished by A type fire extinguisher and ABC type fire extinguisher and AB type fire extinguisher. So they can run to 3 places for them to be safe. Once they've done that, make sure that they're all in the right places. Ask them to come back again and do a few more rounds depending on time. I've written 18 examples here in the manual. Depending on the time, only then do that. With that, they will understand what are the different types of fires and which are the fire extinguishers which can extinguish it. Now then we move on to the life flag activity. The Life Lab activity this time is for them to make a DIY fire extinguisher. Basically, there is they have a pouch with vinegar and baking powder, and they have a candle which needs to be lit, and the reaction will foam up and burn the stop the fire. Since there is fire involved, you'll have to be very careful about how you're arranging your class. Do not give the handout unless the children are arranged in such a way that they cannot hurt, the fire cannot accidentally hurt anyone. Also, we keep some water with you so that if there is any accidents, you can quickly extinguish the fire. And the facilitator will have to manage lighting the candle for all the students. You can, if you think the children are fine doing it themselves, after you light one, they can pass the candle around. But be very careful when you're doing it so that we avoid any accidents. After they're done with the activity, make sure that all of them have put out the candle. And also remember, there is three glasses that they have given. You have to use the big plastic glass for this activity and not the smaller ones, because the candle is slightly big, so you need to use that. Then we go ahead and go through the activity sheet, finish the assignment, and you are done. So with that, we go into the closure. For the closure, we talk to children about, if fire is very important in our life, but it's also unsafe if we are not careful. Ask them what are some things you can do to make sure it's safe, or even if there is a small fire, what can you do? And ask the children if they can make a poster and bring it back for the next session. Now, once they make the poster, also ask them to show it to somebody who has not been in the session, so that they can learn from the poster. The discussion point for the coming week will be if the others learn something from the poster. And also please give them A4 sheets for them to make this poster. With this session is done. See you in the next week.